Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Max McAllister with another episode of Cycle with Max. And I'm going to show you some tips from a mechanic's standpoint on the things you can do to prepare your bike for an ultra endurance event, and some simple spares that you can have in case of emergency at your pit areas. And I'm going to approach this from kind of a front to back on the bike, and I'm going to approach it from I'm a rider with absolutely no money to I'm a rider that has pretty much all the money I need to buy anything I want, and kind of in between. So if there's tips I can give you in between, I'll do that. So hopefully you've trained well, you know what you're doing, and you're all prepped up and ready for the race. At this point, a week from now, there's not going to be anything you can do to enhance your training. But you do have time, a whole week, to study your bike, look for weaknesses, look for ways you can improve it, look for ways you can improve the reliability, and be certain you get to the finish line. So let's start with a spares kit. Come on over here closer, and I'm going to show you what goes into my spares kit and some things that I have around, either with me. You can come real close if you want there, my fine camera person. I tend to use a little bit bigger saddlebag, and the reason is because I want to put my rain jacket inside of it. But the things I like to keep in my spares kit are a little simple first aid kit in case I injure myself and I'm, cut or bleeding. I carry a derailleur cable. If you're not a skilled mechanic, this won't be of any particular use to you, but it takes up no space, and maybe you'll find some fortunate person that wants to help you. I like to carry, obviously, spare CO2s. I carry razor blades. If I can't want to take up space with a knife, but if I needed to cut something, or including who knows me, or some horrible emergency, I want to have something sharp. So you can carry a razor blade in the wrapper, or I've put a little piece of tape because this one has a pointed edge. This is out of a box knife. I carry a couple paper towels in case I have to work on my bike. People don't stop to think, but most bikes are tubeless. If you have to put a tube in your bike, you're going to have a really nasty, mucky tire inside. So if that's the case, be sure to take your gloves off. I like to carry gloves in case I have to work on my bike, just a set of surgical gloves. And I carry kind of a kitchen trash bag. This is for the dire emergency. I'm injured, it's cold, I'm raining, it's going to be a while before somebody can get there to help me. I can't walk, who knows what, right? So you got to kind of think about bad things that might happen. If you want to carry a spare battery in case your heart rate monitor happens to croak and you have one that you can change with a coin cell battery, then that's easy to do. It only takes a minute. I always carry 3 zip ties. Make sure they're the same size and shape as zip tie. These can be used for all kinds of things to fix on your bike, or, and again, another dire emergency, potentially a tourniquet if you link them end to end. In some sort of a medical emergency. So make sure they're the same so that they'll link. This might also be used if your saddlebag straps tore loose, which is common to happen. So I always want to make sure my saddlebag's in good shape, and not, beat up from lots of endurance racing. But if you had to, you could strap this around your seat rails with these if it happened to tear loose. You need a good multi-tool. Don't get just a little simple one. And the most important thing, make sure you get a tool that is big enough and well enough equipped that it has a chain breaker on it. If your chain breaks and you don't have a chain breaker, you're just dead in the water, because nobody's really likely to stop and help you for the amount of time it's going to take to repair your chain. Secondarily, you need to learn how to work it. Now, on a lot of these multi-tools, tools are hidden and pieces pop out. So you got to study your tool, know how to use it, make sure you have a tool that will open every fastener on your bike. And that way, if you ever do get into notable real trouble, then you can use it. So for instance, this little piece of screwdriver pops out to give me a handle for my chain breaker. Now, having said that, if you have small hands, your hands aren't very strong, or you have some sort of arthritis or something like that, you may need a more significant chain breaker. You can buy something like this that actually pretty much is easy enough for somebody to use, doesn't take up much space. But be sure you understand your tool before you use it. So that's one from Specialized. It's kind of slick and small and compact. This is one from Park. And, you know, for instance, the tire lever doubles as the handle for the chain breaker. So you got to, again, study your tool, make sure you know how all of it works and how you're going to use it in an emergency. If you've never used a chain breaker, you need to learn. If you don't have a piece of old dead chain to practice on, just stop by your bike shop or any bike shop anywhere. They got buckets of them in a trash can, and practice breaking the link in a chain. And then be sure you know and understand how to use a power link and install, you know, the connecting link. I like to keep my connecting links really handy. I'll show you where I do that in a little while. For if you're older like I am and can't see anymore, these are reading glasses. They're from a company called Nooz, N-O-O-Z. These are super slick. I carry these in my jersey pocket, so I don't have to carry reading glasses with me. If I had to work on something small on my bike, I'd never be able to do it without glasses. These just pop out and they go right on your nose. They look kind of funky, but I can see perfectly to, you know, read 2016 Energizer, you know, down to the tiniest print. So these things are slick, and I keep them on my back, so if I have to read it at any times, then I can. Glasses. I don't ride with too dark of a tint in the glass, so something to be conscious of. The sun can just come and go, and you're going to be on the bike for 12 hours, or, you know, up to 12 hours. You got to have kind of an average tinted lens. I don't ride with a dark lens. When you get out to Twin Lakes, where hopefully you have some crew, I like to have clear glasses available as well, in case, you know, it's just going to be dark or overcast or raining, and, you know, which point I have at least an option to get to while I'm there. Let's see, as far as tools and things, you know, bring what you can if you're a mechanic. This is a great set of tools. You can virtually do anything to a bicycle, a mountain bike, with this kit that comes from Feedback Sports. It just folds up in a briefcase and you just walk off with it. It's pretty cool. It's a nice little kit. The tools are nice quality too. This could actually be the only thing you buy for your whole shop at home. I believe the whole thing's about $275. It hangs on a bike stand, so it's really nice for the pit area. It has everything, chain breaker, stuff to change a cassette. While I was here in just this little simple garage, I took the Eagle drivetrain off of my bike and put a SRAM 2x11 drivetrain on my bike this week for the race, with just the stuff that's right here. The only thing I noticed that it's missing is a pair of cutters for zip ties and things, and a pair of chain link pliers to break a chain link if you needed to, without actually breaking the link with a tool. Be sure to have paper towels and such out there, an assortment of tapes, zip ties. The luxury items, depending on your skill level as a mechanic, are a derailleur hanger alignment tool in case you've crashed. This is kind of a little bit crazy. If you're smart, you will have ordered a spare derailleur hanger for your bike. You will have had it pre-installed and pre-aligned, and you'll be carrying it on your bike with you for the race. So that's what you should be doing, because it only takes a second to change a derailleur hanger, and if you don't have this tool or access to one, then that's going to be a problem. I keep other things in a bag: zip ties, chain lube, scissors, markers, actual reading glasses if I needed those while I'm working on the bike, oils, lubes, things like WD-40. If it's going to be rainy and muddy, you can spray the bottom, the frame of your bike down with WD and stuff to keep mud and things from clinging to it. PAM also works for that, oven cleaner stuff. Just be certain you don't spray it on your brake rotors while you're doing that. Keep tons of surgical gloves around, and lots of little tapes and things. And that's kind of about it for tools. Oh, again, if you're a mechanic and you know what you're doing, to keep brake bleeding and stuff, I have a bottle of brake fluid in there and the stuff to bleed the brakes on my bike. Which brings me to the higher levels of disaster. So if you've had a flat and repaired it, but your tire is actually damaged, so say you've had to put a boot in the tire and you've got a cut in the sidewall, the high budget guy, if you're lucky, you get to have a complete spare set of wheels. So I like to have a spare set of wheels out at Twin Lakes. You know, you say, well, I can't afford a spare set of wheels. Well, maybe you have a friend that'll loan you a spare set of wheels. So a lot of this stuff you don't have to buy, you're just going to be using it for an emergency. And most people think it's cool if you're racing in Leadville, so they're happy to loan you a wheel or some parts if you need it. Things to make sure of. Make sure the brake rotors are the same size as what's on your bike. You know, in my case, mine's all prepped up. I keep the packing covers on the wheel. Make sure you explain to your crew how delicate a brake rotor is. If they're not mechanics and they're not cyclists, it could just be your friends and family that have come out to support you. They don't know that brake rotor is delicate, so you got to make sure they understand to protect that and don't bang in, don't lay things against it. You know, I have my wheels even prepped up with my speed sensors. I have the speed sensor pre-calibrated to my computer. That's all ready. And in my case, you know, if I ever had to change the tire because I've damaged one or damaged a wheel or a brake, I'm not too concerned about what tire's going on. But in my case, I can pre-prep, so I have a set of tires that are for dry conditions, and I have a set of tires that I'm going to use in case it's rainy and muddy. And that only takes a second to make that swap. So it could actually start raining anywhere during the course, and I'm going to be at Twin Lakes, and I'm going to come back through Twin Lakes, and I could just swap to wheels for bad conditions if that exists. On the rear wheel, it's real important, particularly if you don't have the same brand of wheel, to make sure that the spacing on the rotors and the cassette is all pre-aligned. That can be accomplished with little brake shims, and a bike shop would easily help you with that, or you can find a video on that. But you want to make sure that when you put this next wheel on and tighten it down, it spins freely, the brake rotor doesn't drag, and the bike will shift properly without any further adjustment. If it doesn't, and that's your backup wheel and that's all you've got, just make sure you learn how many clicks it's going to take on your adjuster on your shifter, so that you'll know I need to add 4 clicks or take 4 clicks out so that my bike will shift properly when I pedal off. The tools. You want to try and make sure that the tools you're carrying on your bike fit your bike, as I've said, and make sure that they'll actually work to use them. So for instance, you know, most bikes have, you know, big strong through axles in them that are going to be raced in the Leadville 100. You want those tight, right? Really tight, properly tightened. But if you're, again, say you have small hands, you're a lady, you don't have a lot of hand strength, or you're older, you have some sort of arthritis, you take a little bitty tool out and try and turn the axle to get it off, and you're not strong enough. Now you're sitting on the side of the trail with a flat and nothing you can get out. No way to get your wheel out. It may be that you have to carry a bigger Allen key, something that's strong enough, or that you can do strong enough. So, you know, my axles are 6 millimeters. I might find a 6 millimeter Allen key, and if I had to, I'd just tape it to my bike somewhere, just for emergency. Who cares where you put it, as long as it's out of the way. You know, you can hide it anywhere. You can put it in your spares bag, but in other words, make sure that you can use your tools to get your wheel off if something happens, okay? That's a big one. You see people stranded with that frequently. Spare parts I carry. Now we're going towards, again, the more luxury end of things. Some things aren't, and some things are. I keep all this stuff in one bag. It's actually an old Leadville bag, but it's red. That's kind of red's my emergency. If you use something on the trail, you want to have stuff around to replenish it. So inner tubes, CO2s, boots and patches, maybe even some sealants. One thing I would recommend is Specialized has these S-Works tubes. They're called S-Works turbo tubes. They are about twice as expensive as a normal tube, but they are also half the size and half the weight. So big clunky ass tube, weighs a ton. This is small and light and takes up way less space in your spares bag. This is what I would recommend you carry. But you can keep just other clunkers around in case your day's gone wrong. I keep a spare set of pedals. Who knows when a pedal will break? You know, you train for most of a year, you spend a fortune flying to Colorado, and your pedal breaks. That would be kind of tragic. I keep things like grips in case I crash. This is a spare lever assembly, just a complete brake lever assembly. So, you know, if you crash and broke one of your levers off, or broke the mounting hardware, So I keep a spare lever and mounting hardware around because I know how to change that. You could learn too. But if not, at least if you have a spare part, somebody around might be able to help you. That's technically against the rules. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody at Leadville being thrown out of the race because somebody helped them fix their broken bike. Now, say you have a really nice bike. This is an S-Works bike, and it has real high-end brakes on it. This is just the cheapest SRAM brake they sell. This is the lowest level of it. All I care about is getting a brake so that I can get to the finish line. It takes minutes to swap this if something's gone wrong, like you broke your brake lever off or something like that in a crash. If you don't have spare wheels, make sure you have spare brake rotors and hardware handy. Again, correct sizes. Make sure that you can know that they're true and straight. Keep them in something that'll prevent them from getting bent. I like to keep a spare heart rate monitor around because I just really rely on my heart rate while I'm riding, particularly at Leadville. You don't have to have the whole strap. You can just have the module. You say, oh man, I don't want to go out and spend another $100 on another heart rate monitor. What, does your wife have one? Does your son ride with one? You could just borrow for the race. Does your friend have one? Somebody's probably glad to loan you one of these modules, so you can just have it as in case of emergency. I keep spare cable housing and cables around. Again, worst case scenario, you're talking about a more extended repair, but your option is you've flown to Colorado, you trained for a year. Are you going to work on your bike or are you going to sit down and cry? So I'm going to work on my bike and keep my bike in the race if possible. Again, more luxury. I keep spare chain rings. Who knows, I bounce down on a rock down Columbine and bend a chain ring or damage it so where I can't use it. I keep a spare set of shifters. These are cheap. This is SRAM GX. This is their 2x11 stuff I've just converted my bike to. These are really cheap, but they work super nice. So there's a spare set of shifters, because you can crash and break the housing off your shifter and your shifter will be dangling there. It'll be a very long day if you don't have a shifter. But you know, you can change a shifter in 10 or 15 minutes and stay in the race. I don't believe you can safely negotiate while trying to hold the shifter in your hand and run the shifter. And this is a spare derailleur. The most likely thing on your bike to be smashed up and damaged if you crash is your derailleur. And so I just keep a whole derailleur. It doesn't take long to change one. You should know how to change it. You know, changing a derailleur, you would, you know, no harder than relaxing the bent, broken, or damaged one, pop in the chain link, one bolt holds it on and one bolt holds the cable. You're going to swap that out, put it back. You know, this, if you're not familiar with it, it might take 10 minutes or something. One of my favorites, you see it happen all the time, saddles break. And you know, so hopefully your equipment's in good working order, but it doesn't mean anything. Anybody's saddle can break at any time. It's just a piece of stuff. So I keep a complete saddle assembly prepped up. Changing your saddle takes a long time, and you're going to be freaking out and, you know, jittery, and everybody's going to be flipping out under your tent. And so you want to do things that don't require fine motor skill that you can do while your arms and hands are tired, and you know, maybe you're already in the pain cave, but now you've got this problem to deal with. So you can eliminate all kinds of work by just taking a second seat post and a second saddle and having them prepped up. Again, if you're high budget, you can buy the exact saddle you like, that's your favorite, that fits you, and the right seat post you want. If you got almost no money or you don't have any money, lots of people have taken an aluminum post off and put a carbon post on their bike. Just get that old post out of the drawer. You can go to a bike shop, they've got them in buckets, piles, you know, of where they take them off that are, they're worthless. They're holding doors open for people. So if your friend won't give you one, you can pay $10 for an old secondhand one. Get whatever saddle you can. But what you want to do is make sure that it's set at the correct height, in the correct location, and at the correct angle. So go ahead and pedal the bike around, make sure that it feels totally normal with your shoes on and with your kit bottom on, because that affects how a bike and how a saddle feels. So make sure you're, as you would ride the bike, get it totally ready, take it out of the bike. Now, one of the tricks I do for just in case I have to do some MacGyvering is I carry electrical tape spun around my seat post. I go around, you just make it up for whatever you want, 6, 8, 10 times. This can be used for all kinds of things. Bicycle repair can be used for a medical emergency if you've cut yourself pretty badly. Again, you can get in and use that paper towel that you should be recommended you carry. You can make a giant bandage if you need to with a couple of wraps with that paper towel and a couple of wraps of this electrical tape. Second function the electrical tape does is, this is your insertion stop for when you have to swap your saddle. So I have it positioned right on my seat post clamp. Can you come in real close and get a look at that? So you want it right at your seat post clamp. So if I come in and my seat is cocked off to one side, or it's creaking badly, or I'm afraid it's gonna break, when I come to Twin Lakes, I loosen one bolt, take this thing out, chuck it in the weeds, slam this post down in the hole, let this touch the seat post clamp and tighten the bolt, and I drive right off. Total time, 30 seconds, maybe at tops. So this is a good one, which brings me to the next thing. This will cause people to go, well, that's stupid or whatever, but if you have a dropper seat post, leave it at home for ultra endurance racing and for Leadville. There's a mile or two of Leadville where you could arguably use a dropper seat post. It will have no effect on your finish time, but dropper seat posts are a giant gaping hole for failure. I've seen them fail, and they don't ever fail in the up position. They fail in the collapsed position. Lots of things will affect that. Cold weather, low pressure, leaking seals, who knows what. And it's a complex mechanism, usually highly neglected. You're not likely to have taken your dropper seat post off and sent it to a suspension shop and had it serviced before the Leadville 100. So if one thing can and will fail on your bike, is a dropper seat post. This cannot fail, it won't fail. So it would take an act of who knows what to make your seat post just break in half. So I don't recommend the droppers for Leadville. Again, you want your bike to be as bomb-proof and bulletproof as it can be. And so I look for weak links to eliminate, and that's a glaring one. And so I keep 2 solid seat posts ready to rock. And I keep things bagged. Let's say you come and you've got a really bad situation, you've smashed or broken your derailleur, you're gonna have to work on your bike. There's not luxury accommodations out at Twin Lakes. So if you're fortunate, if you live local, I always just chuck in my bike box. I'll bring a bike stand, one of these aluminum bike stands. I like to have a bike stand because, again, I'm capable. If my bike broke, I'm familiar, I've practiced, I've trained, I can work on my bike, so I can bring a bike stand. You may not have that luxury, but what you should keep around is just a cheap plastic, just a cheap tarp. Because if you really have to work on your bike, before you take a tool to it, throw that tarp out on the ground, because if you don't want to be dropping master links and little screws and things while you're already going to be freaking out into the gravel, because you're going to be very difficult to retrieve them, find them, who knows what. So just having stuff underneath you to keep you a mat under you will be very, very helpful. And secondly, if it's rained, who knows what, it could be a mucky mess. You just don't know, so it's just easy to keep a $5 tarp. You probably already have one. Keep a towel around for the same reason. If I've got to clean a part before I work on it or can repair it, who knows how dirty or muddy your bike is. You should have some sort of spray cleaner. Again, even if you don't have a bike stand or anything, you can get some spray cleaner. This is like an electrical contact cleaner. This cleans stuff and evaporates instantly. All the auto parts, Napa, right in Frisco and Leadville, all around have this kind of stuff. You will need to lube your chain at some point. If you don't have a bike stand, that's fine. Make sure somebody in your crew knows, just lift the saddle. Have somebody who already knows how to be the jack man while you spray some lube on your chain. I'll usually do that Twin Lakes inbound, so around mile 60. Again, it depends on how dusty conditions are. Let's see. I'm trying to think of other little things I keep around. All right, so that's kind of stuff I would have laying around. Now, what are some things I've done to my bike to kind of improve it or make it a little more setup for this particular event. One thing you probably might have seen or see people do is some grip tape in key areas on the bike. This really helps in case it rains or you get into muddy conditions. And what it is basically the tread skid tape that you might put on your front stairs of your house so that you don't slip when you walk in the door. This is called Skid Guard. This was $3 at Lowe's yesterday. I found in Dillon. They had it in a roll. You can buy a big rectangle of it. These little strips I got because they were the cheapest thing. They were $3. And that's basically, that works for everything I'm doing. So where you would want to apply this, where it would help you, is on your triggers. So just cut a nice shape, clean everything with alcohol, and apply it. This won't last forever, but it'll certainly last for the race. Your brake lever, you can see there, I got a little noodle on my brake lever. I use these bar ends because I like to kind of stand quite a bit. So I put it where my thumb grips and where my hand grips and underneath. And then if you are a roadie and you're kind of comfortable riding in a TT position with your forearms down on the bars, you know, when you're sweating and slippery, it's kind of dangerous. So you can throw a little mustache of that grip tape on the bar where you put your forearms. Of course, it doesn't feel that comfortable, but then again, riding in the Leadville 100 isn't necessarily a comfortable experience. So that's one little trick I like to do. If you come closer, on your front fork, there's always something on a bike that holds the front brake line to the lower assembly, the lower leg assembly. Now, sometimes it's a single screw. A lot of these newer forks, there's just a snap-in mechanism for the cable. Now, this is one thing that if it comes loose on the trail, it'll go into your spokes and tire and it'll be making like crazy sounds, and it's something you would have to stop and repair on the side of the trail. I just prevent that in the first place. So I did two different things. Since this one isn't actually a clamp on this newer bike, on this newer style RockShox fork, it's just a guide. This cable likes to slide and pump up and down. It doesn't need to do that. So I've actually taped mine in place and zip tied it. Now, if you have don't have a clamping mechanism of any type, one zip tie, you'll hear me say a lot. Two is one and one is none. So one zip tie, particularly if, say, your clamp is already broken or missing, because it's very common, it's a little tiny screw. People strip it out all the time and then end up not having a clamp, and they put a zip tie on this to ride their bike for the rest of the time. One zip tie, no good. Put two zip ties. Doesn't weigh anything. Make sure that your bike's going to make it to the finish. Another thing, if you're not comfortable, another idea, I always look at all this stuff. You can actually carry a complete, if you have more than one bike or your friend or wife, you can just carry a whole front brake assembly. If you were to crash and tear this line or crush it or bend it or break it off, you can just swap this in a couple minutes. You just carry the whole pre-bled assembly and keep that in your spares bag off of a second bike. So moving from front to back, I carry this little coin purse type thing. It's a specialized part called a remora. And in there, I've gone away from gel packets, and I carry this goo bladder. This lets me have 6 gels. I don't ever have to deal with a wrapper or glue or anything like that on getting all over my hands, and I don't have any trash to contend with. The only trick to this or danger to be aware of is you want to make sure that when you twist it in your mouth, just the twisty part opens and that you don't unscrew the lid by accident from the bladder. So make sure that's real tight. But from that, I can do this one-handed. I just jam it in there. So my food's always right there. If I want it, I just rip it out, and I can eat. I put it back. On my Garmin, I have an alarm set hourly so that it reminds me. I hear it goes beep, 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 and I look down. It says 1 hour. I pull my food out and I eat. You may like to have some sort of timing markers to give you an idea of where if you're hitting marks on what your finish time will be. There's several of those all over the internet. You can get that made up and tape it. Make sure you tape over it. So again, plan on it getting wet and messed up. So don't just have a piece of paper kind of tape there. If you do, cover it up all the way with tape. You might want to have a good luck charm, something of that nature. My good luck charm is a 4-leaf clover I found when I was a little boy and I gave to my mother. And I found this in her jewelry box after she passed away a few years ago. So I gave that to her in 1972. That's my good luck charm from my mom. Let's see. On this particular bike, it has a specialized swap box. All right, in here, this is my basic tire service, but tucked in here is the super trick secret from Roxanne Hall, Mazillion Time Finisher. This is a common shower cap. This is like your best friend in the world. If it starts raining, if you get up on Columbine and it's very cold, we rode up there a couple days ago and temperature dropped 25 degrees from Twin Lakes to the surface of, to the peak of Columbine, and that was on a normal sunny day. So it was 74 degrees when we started and 49 or something when we got to the top. It was very cold. Now if it were to rain on you, you'll get in trouble right away because heat's gonna go out of your head and your helmet. This keeps rain out, it keeps heat in. It takes up no space. So the two tips are just go to any old drugstore, buy 3 or 4 of them because you really can't see what they are in the wrapper. You want it durable enough that you can put it on and off and use it more than once. And make sure it fits your helmet, right? That's the bigger thing. It's gotta go snap all the way around so it doesn't blow or fly off. In my tire service here, I keep, again, one more paper towel. That's one of the small S-Works tubes. This is where I keep my stuff that's gonna be super emergency. If I've used a tube and now I get another flat, I carry patches. You need to know how to use these. There's a piece of sandpaper in it. Make sure that the area you're going to patch, if it's near a seam and there's a seam standing there, it won't seal. You got to take the sandpaper and scratch all of the seam down so there's a flat rubber surface for the patch to stick to. Boots, gotta have them. It's in case you've cut your sidewall or even the carcass of the tire to the point where the inner tube will want to ooze out. If it does, it's just going to burst immediately and you will have wasted your time. So make sure you know how to use a boot and a patch. And of course, know how to use your particular inflator. There's 100 designs of these things. Make sure you know how to use yours. I keep my MasterLink, my Power Links right here handy. If I ever take an old one off, I'll always throw 1 or 2 old ones in just so for super emergency. But I always have one obvious one that's brand new in the wrapper. I trim the wrapper down real small and keep it. That's the one I know I'm going to use first. Brand new in a wrapper, ready to rock. And that's tucked. If you happen to ride a Specialized bike and you have one of these SWAT boxes on it, oops, let me put this back. If you have a SWAT box, it's not uncommon for them to be, while you're monkeying around doing whatever you're doing, for you to kick the latch or pop this latch open. You can be riding along and be losing some of your stuff. So I always take a band of tape and go over the latch on a Specialized SWAT box. The idea is hopefully I'm never gonna have to get in there, but if I do have to get in there, I'm ready to go. All right, come around and check this out. So carrying a hand pump.